Hello, everybody, and happy World GHK Day. It's an honor to be here with Global GHK as we celebrate Dr. Hamer's legacy and the greatest discovery in history, Germanische Heilkunde, or GHK. I'm Abela from the Philippines, and today I'm here to share real stories of healing that reflect the truth, power, and hope that GHK brings to our lives and our world. Just a disclaimer, the information given in this presentation is for educational purposes only. Participants shall consult with their medical doctors for health reasons before using anything that is disclosed during the course of this presentation. Students shall not use any of the different information given in this presentation while writing their examinations. These cases were formulated with our best possible analysis of symptoms presented at the time of the consultation. If you are experiencing severe or life-threatening symptoms, please seek immediate medical attention or go to the nearest emergency room. The information shared here is not a substitute for emergency care. All photos and details are posted with permission. All family information has been given with full consent. Happy birthday, Dr. Ryke Geerd Hamer. Your legacy lives on, awakening truth, restoring hope, and guiding healing in the very fabric of humanity. With heartfelt gratitude for your courage and genius in revealing the 5 biological laws of nature. And once again, thank you, Global GHK, for the privilege of sharing in this sacred celebration. May we honor this work with devotion, integrity, and compassion. Today, I'd like to share a few powerful success stories, some from my own personal biological programs and others from the journeys of my clients. Each one is a testament to the wisdom of nature and the transformative lens of Germanische Heilkunde. May these stories remind us of what's possible when we trust the body, decode the conflict, and support the healing with awareness and compassion. In 2021, I discovered Germanische Heilkunde and everything changed. I dove in headfirst, immersing myself in its teachings and integrating them into every part of my life. GHK quickly became the guiding framework for both my personal healing and professional practice. Living biologically is now my core principle. I began with a GNM practitioner course under Andy Lockmears in 2021 and deepened my studies with her courses and other master classes, as well as with a Pilhar Academy educator course in 2023. I also continue to expand my knowledge through the Freya Biological Relationships and Biological Communications course with Dr. S. and remains to be one of the most powerful tools in my healing arsenal. I'm Abela, and I lead the biohacking and Germanische Heilkunde GHK movements in the Philippines. These two approaches empower people to reclaim their biology and sovereignty. The upgraded human isn't a future dream. It's already here. And my journey began in 2015 with biohacking and mentorship from Dave Asprey. As a certified human potential coach, I use advanced tools to enhance energy, performance, and longevity. And over time, I expanded into trauma therapy, earning certifications in EFT, Psych-K, HeartMath, NAET, matrix reimprinting, and more, supporting deeper emotional regulation and nervous system balance. For children with special needs, I integrate the Anat Banyal method, neurooptimal neurofeedback, safe and sound protocol, NAET, and HeartMath to support learning, bonding, and healing from early adversity. The lens through which I work bridges 4 powerful pathways: Germanische Heilkunde, or GHK, decoding the psyche-brain organ relay through the 5 biological laws of nature. This is Dr. Ryke Geerd Hamer's work. Understanding the biology of survival, reflected in Senseful Biological Special Programs, or SBSs, formerly known as diseases. Biological relationships and biological communication through the Freya Biological Relationships course and the polyvagal theory. Understanding the biology of safety and how we are meant to co-regulate by helping each other feel safe. Our most ancient medicine is safety, and we evolved with the power to help each other heal by knowing the person's biological needs, which always starts with safety. Trauma therapy, or clearing the subconscious imprints and nervous system patterns that keep us in survival mode, also known as tracks. Many of the DHS's or causal triggering event happened in early childhood and continue as extended tracks into adulthood. And of course, biohacking, supporting the body's cellular and energetic systems to create the physiological foundation for healing and longevity. And let's revisit the 5 biological laws of nature, the heart of every healing story. As I share these success stories, both from my own journey and from the lives of my clients, I invite you to reflect on the 5 biological laws of nature that underpin each one. These laws have been our compass, helping us decode symptoms, navigate healing phases, and find clarity in moments of fear or confusion. Whether facing epicrises of deep biological programs, understanding these laws transformed panic into purpose and empowered us going forward with each step. True healing, as these stories show, is not linear, but deeply meaningful when guided by nature's logic. Let's go through each one. The first biological law states that cancer is a replenishing process and that every senseful biological special program begins with a DHS or a Dirk Hamer syndrome, named after Dr. Hamer's son, Dirk, who passed away in his arms and who started the journey of discovering GHK. A DHS is a sudden, unexpected, and isolating conflict shock that impacts the psyche, the brain, and a corresponding organ all at once. In every story I'll share today, this law helps us identify the precise psychobiological event that triggered the body's adaptive response. The second biological law states that every SBS follows a two-phase pattern. If the conflict is resolved, the body shifts from a conflict-active phase to a healing and repair phase. Recognizing this biphasic rhythm gave us clarity in even the most intense moments, especially during healing crises that seemed like setbacks. The third biological law, or the ontogenetic system of tumors, our organs respond based on their embryonic origin. The type of biological response, whether tissue buildup or breakdown or functional loss, is determined by the germ layer and brain region involved. This law allowed us to map symptoms with precision and understand their logic through evolutionary development. The fourth biological law, microbes are not the enemy, they are our helpers. Bacteria, fungi, and viruses, if they exist, do not cause disease. They are intelligent agents that assist in the healing phase, directed by the brain. Many of the symptoms that we feared, like fever, night sweats, swelling, they were actually signs of microbial repair and tissue restoration. The fifth biological law of nature, every biological program has a meaningful purpose. At the heart of GHK is this truth. Every so-called disease is not a malfunction. It is not malignant, but a meaningful biological program with a purpose to support survival and adaptation. This perspective alone transformed fear into reverence and respect for nature. It transformed confusion into empowerment, into objectivity, into productivity, finding a solution. And it allowed both myself and my clients to move through healing with grace and understanding, and in fact, in awe of nature. GHK offers a revolutionary lens into human nature, not to fix or resolve every conflict, but to understand our biology's intent to survive and find a workable balance. By reverse engineering the biological conflict, acute, unexpected, isolative, and catching us off guard, we uncover the biological solution. Togetherness. Connection dissolves isolation. It softens the shock. It helps us not be caught off guard, but to find safety in numbers, to find a friend or a sibling to help us. And it restores the safety needed for our healing and resolution to begin. The biological solution is safety, the core of human nurture. At the heart of every healing journey lies one fundamental need: safety. In Germanische Heilkunde, we understand that most biological programs are triggered when safety is suddenly lost through shock, separation, a loss of territory, conflicts, fear. Therefore, the biological solution isn't medication or suppression, but restoration of a felt sense of safety. And this safety is nurtured through relationships and communication. Biology is relational. We are wired to survive together. When we communicate with empathy, attune to the biological needs of the person, and relate without judgment, we create the environment in which healing becomes possible. Nonviolent biological communication, presence, emotional congruence restore trust at the nervous system level. Self-actualization. When we understand that symptoms are not punishment, but purposeful adaptations, we shift from fear to empowerment. This heightened level of self-awareness lets us know what is our weak link. What is this weakness that we need to step above from, rise above from? We find an opportunity to become better because we know what makes us worse, or we know what makes us weak. Self-actualization is an opportunity to become a better human, but we need to be aware what exactly is keeping us from self-actualizing. This then opens a door to living biologically aligned, knowing that personal evolution happens when we feel safe to grow. And when we stop fearing our biology, we find ourselves safe from fear, and we open the opportunity to become better from the inside out. Safety isn't just about survival. It's actually the ground for thriving. And one of the most important is removing the fear from death and disease. The fear of illness often causes more harm than the condition itself. And GHK shows us that disease is not random or malicious. It's meaningful. When we no longer fear the body, we stop fighting it. We come home to peace within ourselves. Ultimately, safety is the biological solution because it reverses the conditions of the conflict: isolation, fear, being caught off guard, not knowing what to do. It is in safe environments, both inner and outer, that the body remembers how to heal, that the body opens up the opportunity for becoming whole again. The mind remembers how to trust, and the human spirit can reclaim its power. Let's go with the first case. And this was my personal case where I had a terrible left-sided back pain. But to be very precise, the pain occurred in the lower lumbar spine and radiated down the back of my left leg. And the DHS happened when my helper collapsed in my living room and vomited. She stayed weak and immobile, but was still able to speak. I controlled my emotions while I put her on one of my machines and gave her a high-dose emergency homeopathic remedy. She continued to be lethargic but lucid on my couch, and I called her employer to bring her to the ER, but she assessed that, well, she actually seemed to be pretty stable, but weak. We decided she should go home, and her husband then and daughter picked her up and brought her out of my house on a wheelchair, and this was my last vision of her being wheeled out of my place in a wheelchair. I continued to be very worried about her. She was a great friend, but I also felt that I didn't do a good job helping her with my practice. The next few days, I sent her text messages and I received no replies, which made me even more worried and made my self-worth continue to plummet. Finally, after 3 days, her daughter replies to me to say, "Oh, mom is okay. She's just recovering and she doesn't feel like using her phone." And boom, that was my conflict resolution. I can finally go into healing phase, which would involve pain. My remedy and my machine worked. And so that night, I had the most excruciating lower back pain. With the swelling of the lower lumbar disc, the biological conflict was a central self-evaluation, a core personality self-evaluation of seeing myself as a practitioner in health. And this swelling pressed onto the sciatic nerve, and that caused a radiating pain from the lower lumbar down to the back of my leg, all the way down to the ankles. And the next day, I received a short text from my helper saying she's okay. And that night, I had the same radiating pain, which defied every possibility of sleep. And I did everything I knew. I did biohacking, compression therapy, red light therapy, block therapy, essential oils, the massage gun. Nothing worked. I was in a hanging healing. And the conflict resolution finally came when my helper rang my doorbell one day, looking resplendent in her Sunday best. She hugged me and told me she felt amazing. Her smile and her health closed the program for me. And I knew in my psyche right that moment that the program was finally over. It was like this direct cognition, this knowing that, oh my God, it's done. And I knew I would sleep soundly that night. It's been 2 years since then, and I haven't had back pain ever again. For this case, I used GHK and I read the symptoms of this client. We understood he had a bioaggressive constellation, which is a constellation for a right-handed man that starts with a territorial anger and then an identity conflict. And we discovered that the DHS happened in childhood when he would wake up at 2 a.m. as a 7-year-old and his mother and father would be embroiled in a heated shouting argument. We discovered tracks with his own wife and his children, their arguments and what triggers his anger episodes. And it would happen when they wouldn't listen to him or they couldn't see eye to eye, and they would go into endless arguments. Now, the biological solution would be to help establish his identity again as a father and protector, provider of his children. Through biohacking, we balanced and bonded him with each of his children where they see, understand, and forgive and accept each other. We also dissolved tracks to the original DHS when he was 7 years old, which was still triggering him whenever he heard arguments or shouting voices outside his window. Through the Freya biological relationships lens, I helped him understand the imbalances between his mother and father that caused them to argue incessantly. And this objective understanding gave him peace in his heart, and he was able to find forgiveness for both of them. Through GHK, I structured it around his bioaggressive constellation, around territorial anger, and his identity conflicts. In this particular case, a young man of 15 presented with manic depression, but in GHK, we would call it more of a bioaggressive constellation where he would have angry, manic, psychotic episodes. The parents were physically separated, trying to work out relationship issues. The teenage boy's DHS started at 5 years old when his parents would have scary fights in front of him. Threats of separation, violent shouting, and fighting would swing him from mania to depression. In particular, the father can display episodes of rage and anger that makes the boy afraid. The biological solution was to repair the rupture in the relationship of the parents and to let him feel safe with both of them, and to let him feel safe that none of them will be leaving him. We conducted relationship balances among the three that resulted in this hugging episode here, something that the wife hasn't done in a long time. They say goodnight, they say I love you to each other, and are slowly repairing the relationship. And their son is in a balanced state and is thriving in school, having joined the varsity basketball team because his behavior has finally balanced. And we are hoping that this will continue to downgrade his constellation, or at least balance his constellation and stabilize his nervous system, and continue to implement the ways of self-regulation that we taught him during our sessions together. This case involves a mother with 4 young children, from 1 to 15 years old. They had built an idyllic life in a popular island destination. However, due to her eldest child's constellations, they needed to move the whole family to the metro in order to seek help for all. She and her husband needed to prepare the island home for rental and then find a new home in the city for their children, therapies for her eldest, and schools for the younger kids, while her husband searched for a job that will provide for all of them. A few months into their move and having everything settled, she started feeling body pains and fatigue, which worsened over 1.5 months. We understood that this was a general self-devaluation conflict. Her immobility became a track in itself, as she is a yoga teacher who now cannot even get out of bed. Of course, I supported her through GHK, every day chatting, every day letting her understand her symptoms, keeping her spirits up, and letting her know that the biological laws are there to help her understand what she was going through, especially the law of two phases, where she can understand that the healing phase is where the symptoms present. And she even had a eureka moment where she had one night of pain and peeing several times a night, and the next morning, the pain disappeared. And because she understood the biological laws, she knew that she was a little bit out of the woods. The fatigue remained, but she also understood this, and she continued to keep her mind balanced, guided by the biological law of nature. And even if there were a lot of people afraid for her, the biological laws of GHK kept her sane, kept her safe, and kept her trusting her biology. During this time, she was embraced by her family and friends who had to assist her with eating, bathing, going to the toilet due to her immobility. She understood that the pain in her bones, this was making them stronger. And it was proven because one time she had a terrible fall to the ground. She was taken to the ER, and there was not a single fracture, not even a line fracture in her bones. She knew she was on the mend. And she continued to slow down her lifestyle, accept and forgive herself while trying her very best to be mother and wife. She enrolled in the Freya Biology of Love course, and she harmonized her relationships with herself and with her relationships at home. And a few months later, movement in her body was slowly revived. And 2 years later, she is teaching yoga again. Though her finger joints are still hard to bend due to scar tissue from conflict relapses, she is constantly self-aware and looking for ways to remain resilient and balanced in her psyche to prevent the same self-esteem program from happening again. This case is with a prepubescent female, 10 years old, a separation conflict. Although she is practically a grown lady, her biological need is to still be with her mother. The biological conflict of separation occurred when she left her mom to join her father for a short vacation in another country. The father had a new girlfriend and she was forced to spend time with him, and the situation upset her greatly and demanded that her mother pick her up, which she did. As they arrived home, she developed rashes around her eyes and mouth, which remained for weeks. We know that eczema is the healing phase of a separation conflict. If it is around the eyes, we could say that it is a visual separation while the eyes were closed. It's not seeing someone while the eyes were closed. One could also say it is a local separation conflict of having this part of the face, the eyes, mouth, touching who she doesn't want to touch or see. For example, the dad and the girlfriend when she is forced to hug or kiss or say hello to them, or missing the touch of mom when she kisses her and her mom is not there. So it could be a double separation conflict in that way. During our session, the eczema was in a hanging healing, hence the request for a GHK consult with me. We identified the DHS possibilities and conflict content with the daughter, and she agreed that both are probably true. And so the solution was to feel secure in her mother's presence, that she is no longer separated from her mother and that she is there. And also that if she didn't want to go on a trip to visit dad without their mother, that she would be allowed to not go. She wouldn't be forced to go on a trip she didn't want to go to. And this was complete resolution, as she knew this separation conflict can never happen again, because she also wanted to be separated from her dad and possibly from the girlfriend. And she knew that she wouldn't be forced to go see them. And therefore, she wouldn't have a separation conflict from, I don't want to be with them. And the beauty of GHK is that when you bring your DHS to light, sometimes the psyche can release the weight from the soul and close the SBS. This consultee was already in the middle of chemotherapy, which he and the wife totally believe in. And I make sure not to get in the way of what they believe. And if they want to continue chemotherapy, that is their prerogative. For this case, I relay the biological conflict of colon cancer is an ugly, indigestible morsel conflict with an element of anger, and it can involve ugly conflicts with, divorce cases, court cases, corrupt people. But more often than not, colon cancer is an unjust accusation. I looked at his timeline and found the exact event that involved losing a big client due to an employee accusing him of unethical practices, which to him, of course, was totally untrue. He was diagnosed 1.5 years later after this event with colon cancer stage 3B. Now, the biological solution was first to be surrounded by friends and family during this time to fully rest and to allow himself to be immersed in social safety. He has a loving wife whom he has known since high school and is completely supporting him during this time. He also has family who can help tide over his financial needs in the meantime, and then finding a new client or putting up a new business that will help them recover their losses. And so here we made sure that he doesn't feel isolated and he is not caught off guard. So he has the help of his family and friends to make him feel embraced and also to find solutions to help him with his financial issues and also maybe to find him a new client or put up a new business so that they can recover the losses. My goal here was to help remove their fear from death and disease, to understand that if there is a healing phase, there might be symptoms like bleeding, there might be pain, there might be fever or night sweats, to understand that the second biological law of nature, this is nature's course of wholeness. This is part of the Senseful Biological Special Program, and to give it the time and energy that it needs, which would be 9 months to a year, that he needs to recover and to be okay with it, to accept and receive the help, and to accept and receive the rest and recovery that his body requires in order to finish this particular part of the course. Now, this is exactly what we need for human beings to heal and to attenuate the existence conflict, is that I might not exist because I'm alone. I might not exist because I have financial issues. Basically, that is part of the kidney program, which usually accompanies many, many conflicts. And if we attenuate this particular part of it, then we can lower the risk of having severe symptoms that can lead to extreme discomfort and pain. This client came for a single GHK consult, and upon investigating her case, she had heavy periods and pain, plus a thickening of the uterus lining that affects the uterine muscles. Once we have female sexual organs, we know immediately to look at the status of her relationship with her husband or partner. And it turns out that during the lockdown, she was physically separated from the husband, and the husband chose to live in a different part of the country. So she felt not chosen by him. So this separation caused a strain in their relationship, and she developed a distrust and resentment in him. So this is the DHS to not getting pregnant or not being able to hold on to the fetus conflict. There were conversations about, having a baby, and because he wasn't there, he chose another place, that this is no longer possible. So every month she would experience super heavy bleeding and painful cramps when she has her period, which occurs in the healing phase. The biological solution would be to reharmonize her relationship with her husband and rekindle their love for each other. And I used Freya concepts in explaining the nature of men and their biological needs, which she understood and took to heart. After that, a month or two, she texted me and she told me, oh my gosh, I stopped having pain and heavy bleeding. She decided to appreciate her husband and see him as a man. And this helped their connection more. And her organs are no longer responding to her distress. This is a beautiful case that is near and dear to my heart. The case of an 8-year-old boy with ADHD and vocal and motor tics. The biological conflict in GHK in my investigation, which I also presented in Global GHK, was a motor constellation, feeling stuck or not allowed to move. And the healing phase would be motor tics or hyperactivity. A flying constellation also comprised a double territorial fear conflict, landing first on the laryngeal muscles, where Broca's area is located, and the source of vocal tics, which is in the healing phase, which is frozen vocalizations that comes out as a way to soothe the frozenness or the stuckness. And then there was also a territorial loss, among many other conflicts. Growing up, his parents were very strict with him and they practiced over disciplining with him, as he is a left-handed boy prone to aggressive or more manic behavior. And when he was 5 years old, he was told to put away his iPad and he would not listen. And in their frustration, his mom yanked away the iPad along with anger, which instilled the feeling of stuckness or a motor conflict or a paralysis, and a territorial loss conflict, the territory being the iPad and being yanked away. And this is when the motor tic started. The vocal tic started 2 months later, related to a school contest that he was forced to do, which he didn't win. So they came to me when he was 8 years old and already at their wits' end. They tried everything. He was becoming worse and worse, and his behavior was becoming uncontrollable. The biological solution was therefore to allow him to recover his territory, his iPad, and find a way to use it as currency to inculcate more responsibility and duties in him. Since he was 8 years old, he was growing up to be a prepubescent little man. And also, it was time to inculcate these values in him so that his masculinity can also be nurtured. And we used the iPad as currency to help with chores and home tasks. You know, if you do your chores and home tasks, you can play your games on the iPad. If he goes over the allotted time, he needs to do longer chores. And this is agreed upon and signed in a contract by the child. And the important thing here is to not ever remove or yank the iPad from him, but to have him hand it over to you. And of course, something that was missing since his birth, since his early childhood, I worked on bonding the relationship between the parents and each parent to the child, as they had come to me completely disconnected from each other. I used certain modalities for this, and the mother attended the Freya Biological Relationships course, which was a real game changer in clinching this case, and most any case that I have where relationships are broken. It's been 2 years and the child has caught up with maturity. He has top 4 in his whole batch with 7 behavior awards. He also wants to help other children like him heal and is dead set on making a lot of money so he can support his family, all of 10 years old. He still has vocal tics and motor tics here and there, but there is a very apparent pattern and trigger. So it's actually very predictable now. Otherwise, there are days when he is completely quiet. We are confident that when he reaches puberty and there's another brain change, and that is in a couple of years, these should diminish as his biological needs will shift from child to young man. This case study involved a 55-year-old man with recurring eczema on the neck, chest, and inside the legs. And we understand that eczema is a healing phase of a separation conflict, either wanted or unwanted separation. And upon investigation, I learned that his father had passed away a few years before, and his first flare-up happened months later. The locations of the rashes are a telltale sign that this is an unwanted separation. Missing his father when he hugs him, and his arms go around the neck. And we can also hug with our legs, so the inside of the legs also had these rashes. We also recognized a pattern. When he visits the island hometown of his father, he gets rashes when he returns. So he is very much self-aware, and he tries his best to soothe the psyche. But either way, he allows himself to miss his father, and then he catches himself. And this can downgrade the program for him. The biological solution would be to come to terms with the absence of his father and to connect with him on a different level from time to time, where they can engage in an energetic embrace. Of course, it's a work in progress, but quite an improvement, as he is no longer needing any topical creams or heavy steroids. This is a personal case of mine in which I was conflict active daily for 30 days during a construction project for a neighbor's unit. I was bombarded in loud hammering and drilling from the hours of 9 to 10 a.m. when I was preparing for work. And upon going into the elevator lobby, my nostrils would be filled with this sharp odor of paint thinner. I was very much annoyed by the constant loud noises as well as the momentary whiff of the sharp chemical smell every day for 30 days. And at this point, I wasn't aware that I was conflict active with a stink conflict, in which the nasal mucosa ulcerates to drain out the extra stink. And this happens beneath our awareness, and we don't feel any symptoms at all. All I know is that I am extremely annoyed every single morning. Suddenly, on the 30th day, the end of the contract, I heard some hammering as usual, and suddenly it stopped silent. It was rather deafening as I had not heard this silence in a whole month. And then I realized the contract was over and I would no longer hear these loud sounds. So therefore, the conflict is done. It can never happen again. As I was going out to lunch with a friend that day, suddenly I could feel a cold coming on, and I had not felt a cold come on in years. I realized I was in a healing phase, which usually occurs in a fluid environment. While having lunch, I had to get a box of Kleenex, which I never do. And I just accepted that the cells that ulcerated during the conflict active phase were being replenished through this cold. I was blowing my nose through lunch, but never felt stuffed up or weak. Lo and behold, the program ended in 6 hours, and I knew my nasal mucosa was fully restored. This was a personal case study where I believe that GHK and biohacking really saved my life. I have a separate case study in Global GHK that talks about this experience, the night that I almost died, if not for GHK and biohacking. I experienced the healing phase of an asthma constellation. The biological conflict is a territorial fear for a left-handed postmenopausal woman. I believe I also had the kidney collecting tubules conflict or an existence conflict, being afraid for my existence because I felt all alone, or also a financial worry not being liquid enough. I also was feeling isolated. I had fears around losing a business, around losing money, staying alive due to the threat of both. The healing phase would be urinating several times during the night, which happened to me. Aside from this, I had a healing of a can't swallow a morsel conflict, which involved the esophagus. And aside from the asthma attack, I also had fever, night sweats, and I was coughing up bloody sputum. The symptoms arrived slowly during the day and early evening and became more and more severe closer to the wee hours of 2 to 4 a.m., which is the peak of the epicrisis. I was breathing 60 shallow breaths a minute, along with the classic healing phase of both programs. I certainly was afraid for my life many times, saying, "Oh, I might die today. I might die today because I can't breathe." But my training in biohacking a resilient nervous system pulled me back into center and coming back to the biological laws, the quintessence, and the second biological law of nature. It's a meaningful program and it happens in 2 phases. And after the 2 phases, there is normatonia. The biphasic system of SPS is where I knew that when morning comes, the symptoms will die down, and I just need to survive the wee hours of the height of the epicrisis. Of course, it was scary. There was a lot of activity in the amygdala, that fear-based fight or flight system that says, "Oh my gosh, you're going to die." But I felt that I had trained in biohacking the biology of safety, where my nervous system can vet real danger and real life-threatening situations and allow my nervous system to come back into calm. And this is where the polyvagal theory comes in. I was able to build my ventral vagal complex, which allows the system to self-soothe and calm itself down. And for this one night, it took everything that I had learned in the past 10 years about becoming resilient and everything that I had learned about GHK to really survive and live to tell the tale. And I'm very grateful that I went through this super difficult life experience, because then I can teach people that, yes, trust and believe in the laws of nature, trust in your biology. It just wants you to be stronger, but you need to have the mental wherewithal, the mental presence, emotional presence to understand that this is making you stronger and better. And simply ride the storm. Don't fight the storm. Ride it and understand it. And because storms are temporary. And after the storm, there is calm. This is a case for a left-handed female, 18 years old. She is biodepressive and postmortal. During her toddler years, her mother needed to leave her to grow their family business, but she was left with an abusive caregiver aunt who made her feel unsafe and was always angry. And so she had the KCT conflict, with her eye going up and outward, having been left behind by her mother and father to fend for herself against this abusive aunt. And we know that when there is strabismus, specifically when the eye is going outward and up, that this is connected to the KCT, kidney collecting tubules, or existence conflict, as the cranial nerve in the eyes is connected to the kidneys. Now, in high school, she had bullies to contend with as well. She also isn't close to her older sister, and she was also on the receiving end of the abusive behavior of the aunt. So basically, both sisters were abused emotionally, verbally, and sometimes physically by this aunt. So she has the biodepressive constellation. She is left-handed. She has more of a tendency to be depressive. So biodepressive would be more of an inner suppressed anger, very passive aggressive. And also there is self-harming when her identity is at stake and she doesn't get her way. So only the biodepressives go through self-harming. Now, the biological need of this young woman having a maturity stop of about 9 to 10 years old is her mother. Even at 18 years old, when she is a woman, she also has her period, she still needs her mother because she is still that 9-year-old, 10-year-old girl who is craving for her mother's presence. Thus, we worked on bonding with her mother and letting her mother be fully present for her at home, listening to her needs, listening to what she wants, delivering her needs for her, understanding, communicating openly. We opened better relationship lines through voicing out. We empowered her to speak her mind with a loud voice, something that she has had a problem with since she was young. So her voice is very soft. And so we would train her to go up her volume and to hear her own voice at that volume and to be comfortable with it. We also bonded her relationship with her father and her older sister, to whom she hardly spoke growing up. And now she is enjoying college life more. There are no bullies in college. There's more freedom in college. She is actually more socially engaged in family events now. She sees that aunt once in a while, but she avoids her, which is a good thing. But someday, I think what we would want is to bond and repair that ruptured relationship someday when she is open. We are not forcing it on her right now. So right now, the therapy for that is avoid her. So she has also met a best friend, one good friend that she likes, and they hang out together, something that she hasn't done before. The teachers here are nice as compared to high school teachers who were quite strict and quite obnoxious according to her. But the teachers in college are much nicer. There are no bullies, and right now she is thriving. She seems more confident. She has fewer depressive episodes. We recognize her tracks and we try to work around it. And her tracks are always about identity, being seen by her mother, knowing that she belongs to her mother, knowing that she belongs to this friend. And we work around that. We're careful about that. And we try to also build her confidence in herself, help her feel positive when she thinks about her life goals, her visions for herself, what she wants to see in her life. And someday we would like her to be in a relationship with a man who can take care of her and who can make her feel seen and who can provide for her needs, and that maybe one day she will become a mother. And when she has those mother hormones, well, hormones are very stabilizing. The pregnancy hormones are very stabilizing. She now will become a woman and she is no longer that girl. And maybe since the mother is very open to GHK, if she finds a relationship and she gets pregnant before the age of 25, she can catch up to some maturity. And again, GHK is the only thing that gives us this information. And thus it gives us these possibilities for finding biological solutions like that we would never would have thought of before. Thank you, GHK, for helping us understand human nature and the biology of survival. It is helpful to know the conflict in order to reverse engineer it and find a biological solution. It's also useful to consider the biological needs and use it as a compass, as the needs of a baby is different from a teenager, male or female, and different from a man or woman, and different from a husband or wife, mother or father. And in my findings, I see that most biological conflicts are due to relationships and communication imbalances. And for me, it's always useful to consider having safety within relationships and effective communication as part of the biological solution. And not just emotional safety, but felt, embodied biological safety. When we feel safe with each other at a cellular, relational, and environmental level, healing becomes possible. And that's why for most of my work, it includes creating environments of trust and co-regulation within families, communities, and groups of people, practicing nonviolent biological communication, such as in the Freya Biological Relationships course, relating and parenting according to the biological needs of developing children and not having these behavioral expectations or standards, and restoring autonomy and inner coherence through nervous system repair, basically building that nervous system to be resilient and flexible. And that is what I feel will help this world. When we understand the 5 biological laws of nature, we begin to see that all behavior, ours and others, through the lens of survival. Every person is navigating a unique, often unseen biological program, doing their best to adapt to an unresolved conflict. And if we shift our perspective and look at the world through this lens, something powerful happens. We stop judging. We start understanding. We then understand that the refugee is going through what we call a refugee conflict where the kidneys are responding. That homeless person can be in a brainstem constellation that puts them in a mental stupor to help them survive the dire living circumstances and for being all alone in the world. The stray kitten left behind, they have conjunctivitis due to a visual separation from its mother. The bullied boy possibly going through territorial anger, identity conflict, or a scare fright, which changes their behavior to either fight or to hide, and therefore they adapt for survival purposes. The disaster victim is going through refugee conflict, territorial losses, separation conflicts, which change their behaviors so that they can adapt to this dire life experience. And every one of them is just trying to survive. Even our angry dad or angry mom, the alcoholic, the overworked dad, the workaholic mom, and the narcissist. And, we are looking at behaviors of survival. And it's not that I condone these behaviors. It's just to find, this level of understanding that we are all trying to survive an inner battle. We are all fighting our own battles. And it is our nature as human beings to adapt to this perceived distress. The brain simply activates the code of survival so our species will not perish. To understand that this behavior allows them to stay standing, allows them to survive. And thus, GHK teaches us these patterns. They're not random or broken. They are deeply sensible biological responses. And when we can identify their need, safety, recognition, connection, we can start to meet their needs. And when we meet it, we help others move from survival to healing. And in this light, compassion is no longer a virtue. It's a biological need for collective regeneration. Understanding each other's biological needs is the medicine that makes us human, and it keeps us humane. The true goal of Germanische Heilkunde is to understand human nature, so that we can return to human nurture and we create safe relationships with everybody from all corners of the world. And when we recognize that every symptom has meaning, we begin to meet others with compassion for what they're going through. Instead of fear or judgment, we offer support, safety, and understanding. And in doing so, we create the conditions for true healing, where individuals thrive, family relationships deepen, and communities grow stronger. And this is how we build a more connected world with better, more resilient human beings. I believe Dr. Hamer wanted to gift this knowledge to humanity so that we stop fearing our biology and we stop fearing each other. And we can thus foster the spirit of community and camaraderie, and finally find the peace and compassion that we have so yearned for. Thank you so much for listening to this talk. And thank you once again to Dr. Varghese and Global GHK community for allowing me to speak and express my feelings through GHK, which has changed my life and has changed the lives of so many.